When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
In Walmart Sue Louisville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Who Newville, East, West, South, and North could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart, who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, writer and broadcaster Sam Baker. My guest on the final episode of the season is Anne Lady Glenconner. Now 93, Lady Glenconner has lived, to put it bluntly, a hell of a life. She was born in 1932, the eldest daughter of the 5th Earl of Leicester, and brought up in the early 20th century's rigid social hierarchy on the ancestral estate of Holkham Hall in Norfolk, which incidentally she didn't inherit because primogeniture, of which more later. The royal family were part of her life from birth. She played with fellow naughty girl, Princess Margaret, in the garden as a 3-year-old. At just 17, she was a travelling salesperson for her mother's pottery business when she was called back from America to be a maid of honour at the Queen's Coronation. At 39, she became Princess Margaret's lady-in-waiting, a role she kept for more than 30 years until the princess's death. Aged 87, she decided to write a book. That book, Lady-in-Waiting, was a bestseller on both sides of the Atlantic, spending 35 weeks in the bestseller list in the UK and more than 12 in the States. And it went on to sell over 1 million copies.
Bonhams recently had a sale of Downton Abbey things, all the clothes and everything like that, Downton Abbey. Did you know that I am the original Lady Mary? Because Julian Feathers is a friend, and he based Downton Abbey. You see, Lady Mary didn't have a brother, primogeniture, 2 sisters. I'm the real Lady Mary.
She has since written 2 murder mysteries and 3 more memoirs, the latest of which is the memoir cum handbook, Manners and Mischief, an A to Z of a well-lived life. How much more life did this woman have up her sleeve, you might ask? Plenty, I suspect. Lady Anne joined me to talk about her tempestuous life, the importance of lifelong friendship, knowing you're a disappointment from birth, and the joy of suddenly being in the spotlight after spending her entire life in a supporting role. It's so lovely to see you. And just to go back to your hair for a moment, it's amazing. Apart from it's just
as you can see, I've got no grey hair at all.
You don't dye?
And I never dyed it. And of course, some people don't believe it. So I always say, well, do you want to ring my hairdresser up? Because he'll tell you. I think
How come?
It's quite good. The only trouble about my hair is the face. I don't think is understood, and so the face gets older and the hair remains the same.
How do you feel about all that? Because there's so much fuss about aging now, isn't there? And Botox.
Well, exactly. I think it's ridiculous up to a point. I really do. I hate people complaining. But from my point of view, I've never enjoyed my life as much as I do now. And I'm 93, with a wonderful life. Partly because, in a way, when you're in your 90s, you can give up all the things that one has thought was difficult, like riding and skiing, 2 sports. I gave up absolutely delighted. And the 2 sports I really love is sailing, which again I've rather given up. With swimming, I haven't, because swimming is a wonderful exercise for people of my age. So I swim whenever I can.
Have you always swum?
Yes, I always swam. And of course, I had 12 years alone with Colin on Mustique when we were redoing Mustique. And there's nothing, I did teach in the local little school. Apart from that, there wasn't very much to do except to swim. And of course, in those days, the coral was wonderful. And I used to have an old-fashioned snorkel and spent hours swimming and looking at fish, and wonderful, actually.
So was swimming a bit of an escape for you?
Well, it was. Up to a point, because Colin didn't swim, or he didn't like to get out of his depth, because his best friend at Oxford, they'd gone on holiday, and his best friend went swimming in the lake and drowned. So I think Colin was terrified of swimming. On the other hand, Princess Margaret was, and she always swam breaststroke. She never wanted to get her hair wet.
Yeah, fair enough.
She went up on like this, and I was doing some very uncomfortable sort of crawl in order to talk to her, because she loves chatting. And we spent hours chatting away in the water. Lots of lovely memories.
So you could escape from Colin swimming, but not Margaret, Princess
Margaret.
No,
not her. No, I didn't want to escape from Princess Margaret. I loved her, and we got on frightfully well. We were very jolly chats, lots of laughter. Now I miss her very, very much, actually. Interesting, when I often used to ask her questions, and she was so helpful when my son Henry had AIDS, and most people, suddenly couldn't come and stay and wouldn't talk about it. She always did. I often used to ask her questions about things, and she never answered in the way you'd think she would. She came from quite another angle. She's very clever. She's very well read. She's so loyal to the Queen, if we're talking about spares, because of course she was a spare. And I never heard her criticise her sister. And the only thing she ever said to me was, I just wish I'd been educated like my sister, because the Queen was educated by people from Oxford, Cambridge, Eton. And Princess Margaret, she said she just had our governess and a French governess and somebody who taught her the piano. And I think if she'd been born not a princess, she would have loved to have gone to university. And I think she would have done very well.
I was thinking when I was reading Lady in Waiting, and then whatever next, and the new one, Manners and Mischief. I was thinking I've been binging on Lady Glenconner this week, and I've had a great time on the whole. I was thinking about that because, I've heard you say that you knew right from birth that you were a disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly was. Because the aristocracy still have something called primogeniture, so only males can inherit. In some ways, it's good, because if you go to France or Germany, all those big, big castles and houses have got no furniture in them, because there all the children inherit, and so there's nothing left. At least in England, the houses are full of all the beautiful pictures and furniture, because it's inherited by one person, the male heir. I just felt so sorry for my father, really, because my sister and I were born, and after the war, they had one last go at having another baby, and it turned out to be my sister, Sarah, who we loved. But I remember other sister and I crying when my aunt rang and said, your mummy's had a lovely little baby girl. And we burst into tears, partly because we knew how sad my father would be.
What about your mum being under all that pressure to produce an heir?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I was so lucky, although it wasn't our title, the title, Glenconner is not so grand or anything. But I was so relieved when my first child was a boy. Can't tell you. Everybody congratulated me. And, I know other friends who were in the same position, and they had a girl first time, and everybody said, bad luck, better luck next time, And that was the sort of feeling,
When did you start to feel, this isn't fair?
Well, I wasn't very young. I suppose I was probably about 4 or 5. So, because you could hear, by that time one was listening to other people's conversation. And I remember my nanny got engaged in conversation. And now it was such a shame he hadn't got a little boy, She doesn't have a son, the whole place will go sideways to somebody who lives in South Africa. So I picked it up from what people were saying.
I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because if you don't know that it's wrong, that it's not fair, you don't question it. But it struck me as really, when I heard you say I knew I was a disappointment from birth, I was listening to you on another podcast. And I think I thought, oh gosh, how sad for a little girl. Grow up.
Yes, It was really. But the great thing now, people go into depression and things to do and sympathy. I wasn't given much sympathy. I think sympathy is a very dangerous thing. It makes you introvert. It makes you just think, oh, well, perhaps I have a reason, to be depressed. My mother was very factual, and, I was always told to buck up and get on and, brace up her. And in a way, she was right, actually. And, I talk about my stiff upper lip quite a bit, and it's what got through me. When you've got two sons that are dying, and then the third one has this ghastly accident abroad, and is expected to die, and appalling, and of course, people were sympathetic up to a point, but I love the ones that were more brisk and said, "Now, how can we help?" And, we'll do this, and you go off and have a sail, and or you go off and have a walk, and some practical things like that, and not dwelling how awful it all was.
Yeah, so for the listeners, I should say that your eldest two sons both died, didn't they?
Yes, one of AIDS and one eventually because he was a drug addict. And then Christopher was on his gap year, 19, just about to go to university, so good looking. Went off with some friends, and I said, please, no motorbike, because the minute they got to Belize, they got motorbike. An appalling accident, was left on the road, nobody picked him up. That was the trouble. And eventually, the British Army have a station there in Belize, and they in the end rescued him and took him to America, where he was operated on. But he was in a coma for nearly 5 months. I do think that people should try and not dwell on themselves quite so much, Try and think of other people, try and do something practical or enjoy yourself, actually. I think some people feel, oh, we're hopeless, I'm not doing this, and I'm not good at that. And try and make yourself feel, okay, I'm going to do something positive, and to love yourself a bit. Maybe have a treat every day, watch a favourite film, read a favourite book, go for a walk, bring a friend. Friends that really feel during my life, I went to boarding school. People say, how do you get on at boarding school? And I was very homesick, but I did make some wonderful friends, which were friends all my life. There were girls in a similar situation to me. And I was talking the other day, and I always ask for questions at the end. And a young man got up and he said, I don't know if you can help me. I'm absolutely miserable. I'm being abused in my relationship. Can you give me some advice? And I said, well, look, I'm sure you've got friends. Talk to your friends. Being abused, domestic abuse, you shouldn't be ashamed of. It's something that you have to get through. If it's too awful, you must leave the relationship. If you feel you can patch it up, okay, try. Talk about it. Don't be ashamed of it. And I got a terribly nice letter from him afterwards saying, thank you, Glenconner, for your advice. You've really helped me. I've got some good friends, and I now talk about it. And I think he didn't actually quite say it, but I think he probably left the situation.
Your husband, Colin, was occasionally abusive, wasn't he? How did you get through that?
Well, I did, in a way. It was just like having a sixth child. I had 5 children and Colin. I think at the beginning it was very difficult. And I did go at one point, 18 Charlie, right at the beginning, back to my mother, actually, and said, look, I don't know if I can manage, And she said, look, you've just married him, you're having a baby, you go straight back to him. And I did for 54 years. Mm. I'm very pleased I did, really, for the children, because he had a lot of lovely things about him. That's what so often is the case. He couldn't control his temper. He's quite dangerous. That was the trouble. But he was also very generous at moments and very well read, very clever, very funny. Both sides to the coin.
54 years. It's a really long time.
Well, I think I couldn't. The point was that at the end, he retired to the West Indies, and I visited him a lot. I used to go out, and he used to come and stay with me when he came back. But we were apart for some time in between.
So that helped.
Yeah, yes. I don't think I could have managed it if I'd been with him in a small flat. I certainly could not have done that. No.
Did you ever consider divorce?
Well, you see, I come of a generation when divorce was not sort of contemplated, Some people did get divorced. But I remember my parents talking about it and about people who got divorced. And in my day, you couldn't get Ascot. You couldn't
do anything.
No, and there were a lot of places that you couldn't go to if you were divorced. People forget that, rather. I mean, it was really difficult. And also, I do think that if you've got children, you've got to think the best possible. I mean, you've got to be responsible if you have children. I really think that. And I worked it out that I could manage. I had wonderful nanny, Barbara Barnes, who went on later, to look after Prince William and Harry. And she was great to the smaller children. Colin behaved much better with her than he did with me. She sort of tell him off in a sort of nanny-like way, and also stood the children up when she realised there was a dangerous moment coming.
So when you wrote a little bit about it, didn't you, in Whatever Next? I'm not sure if that was your last book or the one before. What did your children read it before it came out?
Yes, I did ask them about it. I didn't say very much in Lady in Waiting. That was my first book because I didn't know. I didn't start writing until I was 87. And I've never written anything. And I couldn't type. When this young publisher, I've been having lunch with him, actually. It was in the summer, lovely lunch outside. And I saw rabbiting away like I'm doing to you.
Please do. I love it.
He said, have you ever thought of writing a book? And I said, of course not. And at that point, Colin had died and had left, I think, the final blow from Colin, which was something I really, really mind about, was his will. When he left, he didn't even mention me or the children in his will at all. It was just a 4-line will. He left everything to Kent, who was his sort of valet, looked after. He did look after him, but he left everything. And it's very uncomfortable when you're 87 and you suddenly haven't got, you're suddenly cut off completely.
Yeah.
So this gave me an idea. I thought, well, okay, Colin, you've left me in this horrible position. Maybe I will write a book, And when I started to think about it, people said, did you keep diaries? And I don't. One or two small diaries when I went abroad with Princess Margaret. Just a note, I thought it was fun to remember that. But I do keep, I've got about 100 upstairs here, are photograph books. And they were invaluable because it tells you where you've been, who was there, the dates, and then, of course, memories come back. And once I started, I had very good recall, and I could remember all these stories. And so off I set, and lo and behold, which was extraordinary. I mean, Lady in Waiting is a multi-million bestseller. It's been translated into 24 countries, 24 languages. It's been translated into Russian, Ukraine, all the Balkan. And of course, I get letters from places, and my letters to Russian to the people in Russia are slightly different to what I write to people in Ukraine.
I'm sure, yeah.
They're a bit stiffer to the people in Russia.
Lady in Waiting was an instant bestseller, wasn't it? How did that feel?
It was absolutely extraordinary. But the trouble, the difficulty about your first book like that, AJ7 being a multi-bestseller, is it's very difficult to do another one because people expect, I mean, all my books have done quite nicely, but nothing like Lady in Waiting. It was so exciting, actually.
Like you say, you were 87 and suddenly you're at the top of the bestseller lists on both sides of the Atlantic. You say in several of the books that you were brought up to be in a supporting role. You were in the shadow of Princess Margaret because that was your job. And Colin.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why it's been that's why I'm having the best time I've ever had, because suddenly I'm the one that everybody wants to talk to, I'm the one that speaks, like to yourself. I mean, it's lovely, and I still can't get over it. I have to pinch myself sometimes. They say, actually, Anne, here you are, I'm centre stage now. All those years, it's very useful in a way, especially with Princess Margaret, because naturally you are visible, walking behind her, everybody concentrates on her and everything. But you do pick up a lot of interesting things, that people say, because, once she's gone on, they then talk to each other, and I'm there listening,
Yes, yeah.
And that I found fascinating and interesting in lots of ways.
This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Shopify. It's that time of year again, I know. And let's face it, it can be really overwhelming. So the sooner you get things done, the better. And there's no better time to get a good deal, whether you're a shopper or a business, than Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. Whether you're an established business or a startup, the most important thing you need is a platform that can handle everything that's heading your way. Out of stock just as orders pour in, or a site that can't keep up with demand? Make sure your platform is ready for anything and everything that comes your way during the busiest weekend of the year with Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, from household names like Heinz to entrepreneurs like Skims and Allbirds, to startups who will be experiencing their first Black Friday Cyber Monday this year. Don't have time to spend hours poring over every little detail? Who does? Shopify has thousands of templates and tools to help streamline website creation, making sure your site isn't just aesthetically pleasing, but functional too. And you can stress less knowing that Shopify's award-winning customer support team is on standby 24/7 to help get you back to business as fast as possible. If you want to give customers the best experience possible this holiday season, you need Shopify. This Black Friday, join the thousands of new entrepreneurs hearing for the first time with Shopify. Sign up for your free trial today at shopify.co.uk/shift. That's shopify.co.uk/shift. Go to shopify.co.uk/shift and make this Black Friday one to remember. So you mentioned, Colin's will just now. Was the first time you had actually physically earned your own? I don't know how lady-in-waitings get paid.
They don't.
They don't?
No, they don't get paid at all. No. The only one...
Scandalous.
Well, it's the honour. That's the honour of...
I'm not respectful enough, Lady Anne, I think.
No, and of course, I was a lady in waiting that went into the office. We went into the office. We wrote letters. We were put in charge of those charities, and we had to, liaise with the charities. No, it was a full-time work, and I was interested. Of course, the present Queen doesn't have ladies in waiting. She has companions. I was talking to one of the companions. I said, actually, what do you do? Is it different from being a lady in waiting? And she said, well, I think it is, because we don't write letters and we don't go into the office. We're just companions. We go with the Queen sometimes when, doing various things. And she, the great thing is being a friendship. They're all friends of hers. And that's what Princess Margaret had too. We were all friends. But the only time I got any money was when we went abroad for the government. When Princess Margaret went abroad, the Foreign Office would give one a very small cheque for a hat or a pair of shoes or something like that. But no, we weren't paid at all.
I want to ask you some more about Princess Margaret, but before I do, so you were 87 and you got a book advance, which was the first money you had ever earned?
Absolutely. And now
you're getting all those royalties.
Up to a point, but when I worked for the pottery, my mother at the end of the war, it was so difficult, to get people to come and work in stately homes, and, money was short. My mother had this brilliant, she saw this German prisoner of war. We had a prisoner of war camp in the park. We had Italians there first, and then the Germans came. And one of the Germans was a potter, and we always made our own bricks. We always had our own clay here. And my mother went to look at the pottery one day, saw this man doing a little pot. He made himself a little wheel, and she asked him, what he did with the pots. He said he tried to fire them with the bricks, which wasn't a great success. But it gave her the idea. And so I was not very artistic and got very grumpy doing something horrible called sponging, and which is sort of to get the pot ready to go into the kiln. And fettling, I think was the right word. Anyway, I was absolutely fed up with fettling, got grumpier and grumpier. My mother said, look, Anne, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I've always liked the idea of selling. Can I go and sell the pottery? So off I said, as a travelling salesman, I was the only woman on the sales.
How old?
17.
So young.
Well, yeah, we were. I mean, that was what we did in my day. We were jolly well pushed out and to get on with it. And I mean, the one instance, actually in London, when the man behind the counter came my side and started what I don't know, pinching my bottom or filling out. Anyway, I complained to my mother, and she said, for goodness sake, Anne, shape up. Just give him a hard slap next time. and that's the sort of advice we were given.
I hope you did give him a hard slap.
I did give somebody, funny enough, I'll tell you a funny story. Because one of the things about being a lady in waiting, we were also told, which I don't think the Queen said, is that as one is always nearer the princess than security, which one is most of the time, one must keep an eye out the whole time just to see that she's safe. Well, it was I got on to Bondi Beach in Australia eventually. She didn't go because our shoes. Anyway, I got a flat pair of shoes and got her on to Bondi Beach. And out of the corner of my eye, I was standing there, I suddenly saw this man come out of nowhere. So as he passed me, I hit him sharp in the face. I don't think I broke his nose, but I made his nose bleed. And he's so appalled that suddenly this woman should hit him. And that gave enough time for the security to grab him. That's another thing that one was meant to do. And of course, then Princess Anne, she nearly got kidnapped. And her lady in waiting was great, I think. But that's another thing that one has to be aware of the whole time.
So you're basically a really good friend who travels with her and doubles as security.
Well, I wasn't meant to quite, but I mean, it just happened that I did, And of course, I was just lucky. I saw this man who came out of nowhere. He was just standing suddenly, and I gave him a sharp thing on the nose, which stopped him.
You were very, very good friends with Princess Margaret, weren't you?
I absolutely adored her. There was a moment when Colin had sold everything in London. I was able, with something my father left me, to buy a very small flat in London, and it was being done up. And Princess Margaret said to me, and while it's being done up, do come and stay at Kensington Palace. And I said, well, it's very kind of you. It'll probably be ready in about 2 weeks' time. Well, I stayed a year with my flat. Various things suddenly they found.
Always, yeah.
And so I had a whole year. I had my own bedroom, a lovely bedroom, sort of sitting room. It's part of the museum, actually, that her apartment had. So I could hear everybody going round. I mean, there's obviously a locked door between me and I took my own maid there, who was upstairs, and said if she could cook simple things for me. But I did spend, of course, a lot of time with Princess Margaret because I was always there. And sometimes I used to creep in at night after having had dinner, and she always had the drawing room door open, and I could hear, is that you? And I used to say, yes, ma'am, it's me. Oh, well, how lovely, come in and have a drink. So in I went, for quite some time. But we chatted, and, we went to the thing in my new book, actually. I tell a story. We used to have clandestine visits to the cinema at Notting Hill. And as she smoked, we always had to go up to the smoker's balcony. Actually, I mean, I could hardly see the film because in those days, loads of smoke. And I did say to her, ma'am, do you mind? Because the people up there were sort of some gentleman who I think sort of lived up there because it's warm. I mean, it wasn't the most perfect place to be. But she didn't mind a bit. She said, oh, God, Anne, you're so fussy. So as I don't smoke, I just had to sit there, trying to see the film if I could. We used to do these things or go shopping or antiquing or walks, Being with her like that for a whole year, you really get to know somebody. And at the end, she turned to me and she said, she had really loved having you stay. And I said, well, Mum, I love being with you. And she said, you're so much better than our nightmare husbands.
Yeah.
Well, that was a bit of a joke. She's very fond of Colin, actually.
Do you think, it seems to me that history has really done her a dirty?
Well, that's partly why I wrote my book, because partly I'm so upset by, I'm not going to mention because I think he minds her, books written about her. They never met her, they didn't know her, they just made things up. And I wanted to set the record straight, and I think I have, because I've had so many letters from people saying they never thought much of her, she's difficult and all that sort of thing. But having read my book and seen another side of her, so I'm very pleased about that. And I think the Queen, in the end, thought that, because at her funeral, the Queen had a wake afterwards, and one of our ladies in waiting came up, said the Queen would like to. And I went up, and the Queen said, Colin couldn't come to the funeral. He didn't want to. He thought he was going to be too upset, which is odd in a way. Anyway, he didn't come. She said, please thank Colin for giving Margaret such a wonderful time in Musty. We helped her with her house, because that was the only house she owned in Musty. And at the last minute, and just as I was leaving, she looked at me and she said, and thank you for introducing her to Roger Llewellyn. I thought that was very generous.
Yeah, very funny.
She couldn't have said when perhaps Princess Margaret was alive. I just thought that was very kind.
Yeah, because you could have been in trouble for that, couldn't you?
Well, we weren't. It wasn't meant to be. A big house party in Scotland. Princess Margaret there. Somebody dropped out. Somebody said that. Well, I didn't know Roddy. I knew his father slightly. Why don't you ring him? He might be able to come. And he did, and it was instant. I said to Colin, oh God, Colin, what have we done? And that was it. But he was very kind. I mean, he was lovely to Princess Margaret. So kind. He made us so happy. And then she was wonderful. When he then, he wanted children, he wanted to get married. And she said to me, I'm going to make great friends with his wife. And she did, darling Tanya. We used to go down there a lot. And she loved his children. She's very clever like that. That meant she could still see him, as a friend.
Yeah,
so it all ended nice.
It's interesting, isn't it? That perception of her as difficult playing the game. I mean, it's something that happens to a lot of women, isn't it, who don't toe the line.
I think she was a freedom spirit up to a point. And of course, people will forget. I mean, there they were, a wonderful little family of 4 when her father was Duke of York. The Queen Mother, they really had a wonderful time. Because my father was a query to him as Duke of York during the time of the abdication. And then he was with him as king afterwards. So my father was in there the whole time and said it was a blow beyond anything when the Duke wins the abdication and all that sort of thing. And suddenly, this lovely little group of 4, and they had to go off to Buckingham Palace. The other thing, there were only 4 of them. The king was King Emperor of half the world. If you look at a map in those times, half of it was pink. I mean, they were very, very grand. I mean, she brought up. I think people forget that slightly, And then she, unfortunately, perhaps in a way, she had another Peter Townsend. That didn't work out. And then her beloved father, she adored the king. And when the king, who had this awful stammer, I think that was part of the difficulty, that he couldn't communicate. And that's made him, he used to lose his temper quite a lot. And my father was always picking up waste paper baskets and being kicked across the room. And so it was always sent for Margaret, because she had a magic effect on him, and she's funny and sweet. And the king was, I don't think, how fortunate he was in having the Queen and Princess Margaret, because he always said, well, Elizabeth is my pride and Margaret is my joy. And I think that summed it up, And of course, suddenly he died. That was a terrible blow to Princess Margaret. I remember seeing a film that the Queen had taken, a private film of the coronation. And I was one of the maids of honour, carried her train, literally attached to her during the whole of that day, which was absolutely amazing. It was the most marvellous day of my life. Anyway, in this film, after we got back to Buckingham Palace, the Queen took off her crown, and that's the moment Prince Charles tried to grab it, and he was in the form. And my mother, who was lady in waiting, got it back and put it on the table. Because awful if he dropped it. It was bad. And the Queen sort of happy. She was sort of skipping along, and we sat. She sat in the middle on a sofa. 3 maids of honour each side. I remember that. She had put up her legs slightly, and we all did. We said hooray, and she said, "Oh, everything went so well. Thank you so much." And it was so happy and lovely. But when I saw this film, there we were all. And the Queen was smiling, but behind at the back was Princess Margaret, looking so sad. I was with her one. I said, "I've just seen this film, ma'am, and you look so sad." And she said, "Of course I was, Anne. Lost my beloved father. I've lost my sister, really, because she's going to be so busy. All the fun we used to have, we probably won't have now." And she said, "I've got to go and live with my mother." So it was, and I think that's why she perhaps fell in love with Peter Townshend. He was more a sort of father figure, having lost the king, her own real father. I think that was part of it, actually. And the Queen would say why. She didn't say you can't marry him. She said you'll have to wait till 26, because when you're 26, you can legally, you don't have to get my permission and all that. He's going to go to Belgium. So at the end of 2 years, you can marry him if you want. At the end of 2 years, she decided, for various reasons, religious reasons. And of course, again, he was divorced with children. And divorce in those days, people just didn't do that. And also, I think she had 2 years. I mean, Colin was part of her Princess Margaret set, and she had quite a lot of fun. I think there were a lot of reasons. And she decided, I think quite rightly, not to marry him.
I mean, you have lived such a varied life, haven't you? Because you've had connected to the royal family almost since you were very small.
Much so. Father was incredible. My uncle, great uncle Jack Cook, was Lord-in-Waiting to Queen Mary. My aunt, Lady Mary Harvey, was Lady-in-Waiting to the Queen Mother. My mother was Lady-in-Waiting to the Queen, for years. She was walking at Coronation. She's walking just behind me, which was lovely. And so it was a great joy when, after I had my twin daughters, Princess Margaret, she was having dinner with me, and she said, Anne, I do hope you're not going to have any more children. So I said, well, no, absolutely not. I've got 3 lovely sons and then twin daughters. In that case, she said, would you like to be my lady-in-waiting? Because we're such friends. And that's the whole point of being a lady-in-waiting, especially when you go abroad. Because in the evening, having jolly hard all day, she said, Anne, get into your dressing gown, come and have a drink with me. And so after a busy day where we were, I'd go and chat to her. And she also trusted me very much. I was always looking out for her. And when we went to dinners or lunches, I was always put at a table with eye contact with her, so that if she wanted me, she just looked at me and I go over and answer what she wanted. I think being a mother, I adore my children, help look after them, marvellous Nanny Barbara. But I like looking after people. And that's probably why I didn't get divorced from Colin, because I felt he might get better. I sort of tried to make life easy for him, I think that's what he is in a nutshell.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Did you enjoy that other side of life, the Mustique side of life, the Mick Jagger, Bryan Adams, drinking with Kate Moss,
Well, it was rather glamorous. I mean, sort of said they were going to Mick Jagger concert and all this sort of thing. And then they'd say, do you know him? And I said, well, actually, yes, I do. He did on singing. Actually, I've sang with him too. They've actually made. I mean, he used to put on these wonderful amateur theatricals, and especially at Christmas. I mean, Mick, I really admire, like him so much. The few people really loved Mustique. He got to know people in the village. He helped finance them in school for them. Not now, I don't think. He used to play cricket in the cricket team. He's just part of the island, which a lot of other people weren't. They kept very much to themselves. But we did have David Bowie and all sorts of people. And I did enjoy these extravagant parties up to a point, but I knew they were costing a fortune. And Colin just was racing through what he had. In the end, when he died, he left everything to Kent. But, he financially in back, he's nearly back.
Are you financially astute now you're book rich?
Well, we're not really. Well, not, and that's why I'm having this sale. I'm glad you brought up that question because, well, you know, you never make. I did make some money with Lady in Waiting. That was the only book I did, you know, but nothing very much. I mean, it's quite difficult unless you're have a sort of. It's very difficult to make money as an author now. I get a magazine. Yeah, I get a magazine called The Author. Very interesting, and it's terribly difficult. I mean, most authors make sort of very lucky. They make 8,000 or 9,000 a year.
Yes, it really is a struggle.
I mean, it's really struggling. And the A1 is such a... I mean, they've got my book. They didn't have to ask. But A1 or...
AI, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I was thinking A1.
Well, I don't know what it looks like. One. It's an AI.
It's AI. So have they stolen your books too?
And I believe you can't do anything. But they may pay me a miserable sort of few £100. And that's it.
Yeah, for all that work.
It's really, really difficult. I think really difficult for authors. But no, I haven't really, you know. And so, because darling Christopher had this awful accident, isn't getting any better, you know. And he's got such a lovely wife, Joanna. And I want to help them. I want to see that if I can make a trust for him, you know. And so I'm having this sale at Bonhams, and Bonhams have been great. In part, I've been very, very lucky. People always say to me, how do you write a bestseller? How do you get to be asked to be in part of Coronation? It's luck. I've had a trip when I had terrible, unlucky things like losing my son. I've had a lot of luck. And the luck was that Bonhams recently had a sale of Downton Abbey things, all the clothes and everything like that, Downton Abbey. And I said to Charlie Thomas, I said, did you know that I am the original Lady Mary? Because Julian Feathers is a friend, and he based Downton Abbey. You see, Lady Mary didn't have a brother, primogeniture, 2 sisters. And so I said,
amazing.
I'm the real Lady Mary. And so as I'm selling my wedding dress, he said, well, we'll have it early and we'll put it up beside the Downton Abbey Lady Mary's wedding dress. And evidently it's a great success, you know. And so I'm pushing the sale slightly. But if they want a memento, you know, I am, in fact, the real Lady Mary. Yeah. It was based on me. I thought it was all funny. And anyway, I'm having a sale. It's of things that my mother gave me or I've collected. Bonhams has kindly said that I can also launch my book, which is called Manners and Mischief, an A to Z of a life well lived. Quite fun, actually, because I thought, well, why not? 93, this is going to be my last book. I really can't go on. And it's quite a lot of funny, interesting, some royal stories, some interesting stories. Haven't really liked to put in my other books, but hey-ho. I've done it now. And
it's so entertaining.
Well, you was ready. But that's, yes. I think it is.
Here's my copy.
Oh, good. Yes, that's it. I'm looking quite naughty on the cover. The reason was Colin was actually behind me, and Patrick Litcher was taking the photograph, and Colin kept saying, higher, I want to be in the picture. You're concentrating on that. I'm just looking, that half of the course, Colin, you always want to be, you want to airbrush me out.
He was a child, wasn't he?
Yeah, oh, well, yes, that's what it was, yes, absolutely.
I thought it was a great title because that does sum up your life, doesn't it?
Well, it does, really. You're absolutely right. Because a lot of the time I had to be, especially the time I went to the Philippines, and I took the place, really, Princess Margaret, because Madame Marcos had arranged all these things and she didn't want to put them off. And Princess Margaret got pneumonia on our trip. And luckily, there was another lady waiting and stayed with her in Australia. And she said, you and Colin was with us, actually. You go because, and explained to Madame Marcos, I'm really ill and so sorry not to come. So I went. And Madame Margaret, absolutely. And Colin buzzed off. He's far too exhausted. After about 2 days, he said, I'm getting out of here. I've been so tired in my life. but Madame Marcos picked us up every morning about 8. And then part of our trip was that in the evening, she went into all these different hotels there. And there was a band playing, the most tourists, I suppose, jumped straight up onto the stage and started to sing. She actually sang quite well. But that happened, that we sat and listened to. But anyway, I was there for another 3 or 4 days. And then I went on to Hong Kong. That's right. I went to Hong Kong. Also, Princess Margaret was meant to go there. I had a really interesting time there because the army took me out at night and I saw all the Chinese trying to get into Hong Kong, because at that point Hong Kong belonged to Britain. And the Gurkhas used to go out off them. It was terrifying. And I think very few Chinese got through. So I had very fascinating. I mean, looking back, we're so lucky I've done this sort of thing.
Listening to you talk and reading your books, it's like a chronicle of an entire century.
Well, I think sometime BBC wanted to make a film about me, but then they thought it was too much like The Crown. I think after I've been gathered, maybe somebody might make a film. Anyway, let's see.
Do you think about being gathered?
A lot, because I watch television quite a lot. I mean, there's so many adverts for people saying, you must be this sort of, either you can be cremated like this or cremated like that, and this and that. So you're reminded about death the whole time, especially on the programs I watch quite a lot, which have got old films, and that sort of thing for older people. And they aim at us the whole time, what they think one's family would want one to do. So I do. I talk to the children a lot. I think you should tell them exactly what you want to happen so that it's easy for them, and they know. It's quite a marathon for them, actually.
Yeah. Before I ask you the questions that I always ask at the end, there was something else I wanted to ask you, which is that I interviewed a woman called Dr. Gladys McGarry, and she was 103 when I spoke to her.
Oh, well done, her.
And she said that she had said that her life kind of, in a weird way, began when her husband left her when she was in her 60s. Yeah. But she said she found her voice when she was 91. And I wondered, how old do you feel that you were when you found your voice?
Well, I suppose when I wrote my book, because I was a bit younger, 87. Lady in Waiting was the catalyst. It was the moment that I felt that I had something interesting to say, that other people were liked it, and it was this huge success. So I think I was 87, and I've been going ever since. I mean,
yes.
just having the best time ever. The other thing was that with the boys dying and all that dreadful time, and the anxiety of the other children, and I still do I hate people ringing me up in the night. And of course, because I've got a lot of fans in Australia, that does really, my heart stops, actually. They get the sharp end of my tongue, I can tell you.
Yeah, fair enough.
They always say, "Oh, gee, lady, how are you?" And I said, "How am I?" I said, "You've just woken me up. It's the middle of the night. It's 3:00 at night. Please, in future, find out what time
it is." Check the time.
No, exactly. So that I do.
It's a nasty shock as well, isn't it, when the phone rings in the night?
Awful, because you think, in the back of my mind, because of what I've gone through, there's always a tiny niggle, and then I think, well, it'd be the worst luck in the world if anything happened to the others. I've been through so much, really, up to a point with children.
Touching words now.
I just feel, God, I'm a Christian. I really just can't let anything like that happen again to me. But, otherwise, apart from that, now I'm having a great time. And I'm going down to London. I've given up my flat in London now because it was too much for me. It didn't belong to me anyway, but somebody kindly let me stay in it. And I now get to a lovely little hotel, which is like a private house. I don't have to cook. I don't have to go and do anything. So, I'm in a very happy place at the moment.
Sounds great. Are there other things? I mean, you said that you didn't think you would write another book, but I'm not sure I believe you. But anyway, are there other things that you've got on the cards that you'd like to do?
I think what I love, of course, which gives one the opportunity, is I go and talk about. I love book festivals. I went to a wonderful one where the Queen was at Chatsworth. It was for the Queen's reading room. My book, Lady Maid's been on her reading room. And she's been so helpful and supportive about that and about domestic abuse, because my last book, Picnic Papers, I sold an aid of domestic abuse. What she's done for reading is incredible, absolutely incredible. Great admiration for her. And then I had a wonderful, about 2 weekends ago, I went to the Isle of Wight, a lovely book festival there. You meet interesting people, you meet other authors. And I love it, absolutely love it. And I've got lots of things lined up for next year, and yippee.
It's like now you're 93 and you're centre stage for the first time, really?
Well, I am.
Okay, I'll quickly do the questions that I always ask. What is your emotional age?
Well, that I thought was rather difficult. I mean, I'm having the best time now, really. The only thing that I wish emotionally, perhaps, I was younger, is probably my health. I mean, I've got very good health, but I'd love to be as strong as I was. I'd love to still be able to really enjoy going out sailing and that sort of thing. When I was younger, there were lots of things, but I suppose at the moment it's 93.
93, but a bit fitter.
93, but a bit fitter. A tiny bit more lively.
Yeah. Give us a book recommendation.
I was great friends with somebody called Judy Montague, and a book just out called The Greyhound Diaries that Judy wrote when she went on a Greyhound bus around America before she was married. And I also went on a Greyhound bus around America. And it's a lovely book. And her daughter, Anna Mathis, is the editor. And it's just out. It's called Greyhound Diaries. Really recommend it. It's great.
I mean, you've really, every time you say something, you come up with something else that you've done.
Well, the Greyhound bus, I did have one very unfortunate moment on the Greyhound bus. So I always took a sleeping pill. I used to travel at night, and off we set. And something happened to the bus anyway, and it had to go back. And so I suddenly woke up, a very angry driver shaking me awake, saying, "You've got to get off." And I said, "Are we here?" And he said, "No, you'd have to come back." So that was slightly embarrassing. I had to be dragged off the bus having had a sleeping pill, but apart from that, it's all right.
What advice would you give younger women?
Yes, I thought about it. I mean, I think it's difficult to give advice to people, really. But I do think to be a good mother, if they're married, I think somehow people should, I'm sure they are good mothers, but to also have some fun, to think cheap, like going for a walk, going to see something, feeding the ducks, to make life happier. Because what I gather and I read is everybody's so miserable, and they're always blaming something. And if you could get that out of your system and started to feel happier and more positive, everything then comes into place,
An older woman who has inspired you?
Oh, well, the present Queen. I mean, I just can't get over. She wasn't born to be Queen, and she has fulfilled this role amazingly. And I mean, so much of our life when she's, friendly with the King, she had a terrible time, and people were so rude and awful to her. And I mean, I'm full of her partly because of her reading room, encouraging people to read for things she's done about it. She encouraged me to write about abuse because she thought it would help other people not to be ashamed. And she's made the King so happy. And she's just fun. I mean, she's got a wonderful sense of humour.
What's your superpower?
Well, I suppose I'm not quite sure about it. What do you mean about her superpower?
Well, what is the kind of special thing that you have? Like, is it resilience? Is it...
Oh, I see. No, well, I suppose, because I do talk about it a lot, is my stiff upper lip. It's my resilience. It's the way I was born in an age where I didn't see my parents for 3 years. My father was fighting in Egypt. I had a cruel governess. I had to grow up very early. October, my mother took after my sister. I was in 7. My sister was 5. I was brought up in an age where you did what you were told and you did your very best if you could. So I suppose it's my stiff upper lip.
And last one is how much do you care now what other people think?
Well, I care from the point of view I don't want to upset people. I try and always be kind. On the other hand, my new book, as you read it, you can see that I don't care so much. I talk about wearing big knickers, which I wouldn't have ever talked about before. I just sort of, I wanted something under K, knickers. So from that point of view, I don't mind. I quite like being a bit outrageous for moments. I do mind I do try and be kind and as nice as I can.
Okay. That is the problem with an A to Z, is you do have to have something for every letter.
Exactly. Well, actually, for K, I had king, I'm afraid, and knickers. So I'm not quite sure. I didn't think he'll read my books. He might be a bit surprised.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.